What's good, internet? Jake here, dumb as ever, and I do not like Transformers Age of Extinction, or at least that's how I felt when I watched it years ago. Truth be told, I haven't watched it in so long that I forgot a lot about it, so I'm going to rewatch it for this video and see if my opinion has changed. But I know for a fact there are some things that I just do not like. For example, I am not a fan of Optimus Prime's samurai look, especially compared to his OG trilogy design, and I actually have real hate in my heart for Mark Wahlberg. As per usual, the main mission of today's video is to investigate the toy line, which is hailed as the de facto worst movie toy line by most of the fandom. If you've watched my other Transformers movie videos, you can guess that I have a heavy bias towards the first trilogy of toy lines. After the third movie, I kind of fell into a Transformers Dark Ages, where I didn't pay attention to the franchise until like 2016 or something. I remember seeing the Age of Extinction toys at Walmart and being disgusted by how bad they looked. There is definitely a timeline where I get back into Transformers earlier if the toys look good, but I'm interested to see if I feel the same way now. People do a lot of growing and changing in 10 years, and opinions I formulated and held on to for that long might not be accurate to me anymore. So we're going to find out how I really feel about Age of Extinction in this video. And if you're like me, I hope you review your own opinions as well. And I'd be interested to see what you think about the movie and toy line in the comments. If you enjoy this type of video, please consider liking and subscribing. It ain't extra. Alright, I'm ready to strap in and rewatch Age of Extinction. If I'm being honest, I was probably too harsh on the movie. So let's see how I feel about it 11 years later. Jesus Christ, man, what a miserable movie. I actually think I wasn't harsh enough a decade ago. Michael Bay, Mark Wahlberg, and generally anybody involved with this production should be exiled to Antarctica or the moon. What is really miserable about this movie is that it has elements that could be interesting. The US government turning against the Autobots is the most realistic thing about this movie, and the cruelty of Cemetery Wind and KSI really makes them despicable villains. People often say that this movie is inspired by Transformers Animated, which I take personal offense to. It co-opted two of the best ideas from Animated, Lockdown and Megatron's head, and half-assed both of them so bad. Lockdown is kind of cool, he's ugly as shit though, and he turns into this stupid sports car. Classic Michael Bay, obsessed with sports cars and young girls. I'm not even against a Lockdown redesign. In fact, I love when they redesign Transformers. But why take an interesting looking character like Lockdown and turn him into Gray Man that turns into Gray Car? There's a muscle car that Cemetery Wind uses early in the movie, and that would have been such a good alt mode for Lockdown. I do like his gun face though, and the scene where they execute Ratchet was actually pretty harrowing. It also serves as a reference to Animated, as these two have a past in the cartoon. But besides that, he's just an exposition machine who gets hoodwinked midway through the movie. He's the final boss, but he's already lost several times over by that point, and he can't even kill a doofus like Cade Yeager. Cade Yeager, what a stupid name. I already don't like Wahlberg, but this character is so ass. He's a genius inventor in the same way Stu Pickles is. Sam was a goofball, but damn, it wasn't that hard to root for him. Cade is over here with a controlling dad arc, something all the 12-year-olds that this movie is trying to appeal to can really relate to. Also, Bumblebee is basically a side character now. I feel like he got less screen time than Hound. Bumblebee was already fading into the background since he became Sam's glorified pet, but in this movie he might as well be a whole different character. In fact, I wish he was, because they write him like he's an idiot. His high-octane vehicle mode was cool until he randomly changed it. He spends a whole scene freaking out about Stinger, who is a KSI Transformer based on B, but then takes on a new design that looks just like Stinger. Ugly as hell, by the way, easily my least favorite Bumblebee design. The design style in general changed in this movie. The bots feel more plated, with a lot of their moving parts being hidden now, probably because they realized the insane amount of work the older models required, which isn't a huge issue in of itself. The Transformers definitely feel more cartoony to me, but the CGI is still decent. What is a huge issue are the KSI Transformers, which turn into little blobs to transform. A blatantly obvious choice to cut down costs. And more throughout the movie, I started to notice how little the Transformers actually transform. They do, it's just often off screen to again, save money. Galvatron is a decently cool concept and design to me, but the whole plotline involving him taking over KSI just feels so ham-fisted. And it extended this movie by like 45 minutes, only for all of this plot to be completely ignored in the last night. Seriously, this movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes long. I cannot believe they let this movie come out like this. Truly no fat was trimmed. Much like this movie, I'm running out of steam, but I have more. The Dinobots have a pitiful amount of screen time. None of them have personalities, but they are kind of puppy-coated, which works for me. Plus there's a Spinosaurus Dinobot, which is badass. Out of all the pointless time-wasting elements of this movie, I can't really hate on the Dinobots. But then there's this whole backstory with the creators, which the movie refuses to elaborate on. The writers were just doing whatever. As per usual, the actual Transformers were given 1% of the actual story, while Mark Wahlberg soaks up all the screen time to give us absolutely nothing performance-wise. I have a dead wife, I'm broke, who cares? Who cares, man? But yeah, I did like Hound though. John Goodman is a great actor. There are probably 100 more things I could talk about, but yeah, I went in with a fairly open mind, and the movie bit back at me like a rabid dog. Any enjoyment I found was counteracted with a pointless scene, terrible acting, or the worst jokes I've ever heard. If you like this movie, I genuinely want to know why. Did you grow up with it? I love bad movies I grew up with too, but what do you see in it? I actually want to know. No judgment from me at all. Okay, enough complaining, sorry, let's talk toys. While the first 3 Transformers movies prioritized the main line of toys, Age of Extinction was the first to focus on quote-unquote kids' toys. Yes, they are all kids' toys, let's not get it twisted, but some are just simpler and aimed towards younger kids. The past movie lines had done something similar. For example, the first movie had a line called Fast Action Battlers, which featured simplified Transformers all at the same scale, usually with an action feature or gimmick. But that line was in addition to the main line, which featured somewhat complex transformations and a focus on movie-accurate detail. Age of Extinction is the other way around, where the detailed figures were grandfathered into the ongoing Generations line, while the simpler Robots in Disguise line was considered the main Age of Extinction toy line. I think this change is a large part of why people hate this toy line so much, though this has been the standard for movie toy lines since then. Even Transformers 1 followed this format. A bit differently, but still basically the same idea. Age of Extinction was the first toy line to introduce one-step changers, which are toys that transform in a single step. This type of toy became an absolute staple of pretty much every toy line since. Seeing these things was one of the reasons I did not buy any AoE toys, because at least to me, when you take the puzzle aspect away from a Transformer, it feels a lot less like a Transformer. I still kinda feel this way, but I'm also a lot more open to these simpler Transformers, and some of them even look pretty decent. Crosshairs isn't bad looking, and Drift in his helicopter mode also looks cool. Lockdown has some long arms, but I like the blue color they added, and he has his green mask thing going on. A lot of these figures look goofy and awkward though. We have some chunksters like Optimus. His whole body is pure brick, and even his vehicle mode looks like a mess. Galvatron is such a goober. He's hitting the mom I threw up pose, but he does have a really cool transformation when you twist the top of the truck cab. Grimlock is built like a Chad with a mega wide chest. One of the big flagship toys was Stomp and Chomp Grimlock, a gigantic version of the character that was still a one-step changer. It even came with a little Optimus Prime to ride him. This Grimlock had an interesting feature. Every AoE Robots in Disguise toy had a little magnet on their right or left foot, depending on if they were an Autobot or Decepticon. You can make them ride Grimlock, and when you do so, an Autobot or Decepticon branded weapon will pop out, which is a pretty interesting design. Similar to the one-step changer changers, we had the flip and change line, which is a bit bizarre. It involves slightly transforming the figures and then spinning them around until they transform, which is kind of weird but also kind of fun. And you can see a mess of gears in the toys, which is how it does this trick. They're pretty big toys too. I don't like this vehicle mode for Lockdown, but a big Lamborghini is fun. Once spun around, Lockdown has really long arms. For some reason, all his toys are gorilla coated. Another cool thing is you can also transform it back into vehicle mode the same way. Bumblebee, Drift, and Grimlock all have the same gimmick, while Optimus had an alternate gimmick called the Smash and Change, where you hold him by this handle and stamp him down to transform. This is a weird but really forgettable line to me. The real meat of the Robots in Disguise line were the Power Battlers, which were deluxe-sized Transformers with a couple more steps, and mainly focused on action features. These things are so gimmick-heavy that most of them don't even really articulate. Optimus Prime has a hilarious action. He looks pretty normal, but if you squeeze his legs, his normal arms will fold backwards, and a second pair of arms fold forward over his head in a sword-slash motion. So overall, this Optimus has 4 arms. Very silly, but very fun. Bumblebee has a punching action, where turning his body will extend his arm forward in a long punch. I kinda dig this one, it looks fun. I'm gonna tell my kids this was Blue Cop. He also transforms pretty interestingly, with his arm becoming the whole back and side of the car. I don't know, man. These are so goofy, I think I've rounded back to liking them. The car I mentioned earlier that I thought would be a good alt mode for Lockdown also got a toy. This line has it transforming into a character called Viacon, and he has a spinning arm gimmick. But it's just cool to see that the car got a toy. Lockdown's actual toy looks terrible. The light gray plastic just makes it look so cheap. Galvatron might be the coolest power battler. The color and paint looks excellent, and his gimmick involves his chest jutting forward while spinning, which is really cool and reminds me a bit of Armada Unicron. The last of these guys I wanted to highlight is Junk Heap. In this movie, there's a garbage truck KSI transformer that turns into 3 individual robots. Power Battler Junk Heap just turns into 1, but I really dig his look. His gimmick is a big claw that comes from his chest, and his garbage truck mode is really cool. I really like when Transformers turn into normal everyday vehicles, and I feel like there should be more. I also like that his gimmick works even in vehicle mode. There were of course several other Power Battlers, but I think we ought to move on to the big kid toys. One of the biggest criticisms of the Age of Extinction toy line, and Transformers products to this day, is how sparsely painted they are. Hasbro skips out on a ton of painted detail, leaving many figures looking a bit bland and flat. Thankfully, Toy Hacks has you covered. Toy Hacks makes stickers and labels that can take your Transformers to the next level. Not only are the stickers beautiful with the detail and quality, but it's fun to add them and slowly see your figure become more and more complete. The Amalgamus Prime set looks absolutely incredible. Inspired by Italian artwork, these labels bring Amalgamus closer to godhood, and some of the sets are really creative. I love how the set for Animated Wasp turns him into his mutated form. Partially mutated at least. It's just really creative and really cool. You can get these stickers and even more at toyhacks.com, link in the description. The more advanced Age of Extinction figures were wrapped into the Transformers Generations line, which, for the uninformed, was a line of figures that was largely unconnected from any movie or show. It was a separate line for designs inspired by G1, or for other corners of the franchise that Hasbro didn't want to give a whole toy line, like the IDW comic book characters. But in 2016, a big shift was happening. Hasbro was moving towards brand synergy, and now the movie toys would be sold under the same banner as their other figures. Eventually, movie stuff would split off again into the studio series, but Age of Extinction's toy line was in Generations, which really didn't mean all that much, to be honest. It really was a branding thing, and I think it mostly meant that the good toys were more obviously geared towards a slightly older age demographic. Like, very slightly. We're talking 10-year-olds versus 6-year-olds here. The first toy from the line was First Edition Optimus Prime, a new version of Prime sporting his updated movie look. This toy is kind of atrocious, and it sets a standard for a lot of the toys we're going to see in this line. He's mostly based off concept art, so a lot of little details are off. You'll notice they chromed the hell out of this guy. There are a few figures in the line that have a lot of chrome. I don't really know why. Maybe Hasbro thought it made the toys look more quality, and while I do like chrome as a novelty, I kind of think it makes these figures look tacky, especially considering they just have chrome in some places, so it looks inconsistent consistent. Prime has a ginormous backpack, and that's because he's a huge shell former, which means the transformation largely involves enclosing the robot in vehicle pieces, rather than actually converting the whole thing as one coherent piece. The funniest representation of this is the last step of transformation, where Prime looks like he's just sitting inside his own vehicle mode. There was a second version of Optimus. This one was a normal leader class, though it shares many design elements with the first edition. There is something pleasingly toyetic about this version to me though. The chrome is applied better, and the transformation into vehicle mode seems a bit more involved, though he still has a backpack. There is a very funny issue. His head has a spring-loaded reveal gimmick, but the spring is way too strong, so the reveal makes his head pop off and fly upwards. This toy got a serious upgrade with the Japanese exclusive Armor Knight Optimus Prime, which not only improved the original's paint, but remolded the head, chest, arms, and feet to be more movie accurate. This version also has a head with a rotating face, so you can either have Prime masked or unmasked. Seriously, such an amazing upgrade, and it really shows what a little love and care can do for a mold. We'll talk about more Takara exclusives in a minute, but let's discuss the Autobots first. Our core team all got toys. In Bumblebee's case, he got two, one of which is his high octane mode, which looks like an amazing figure. I love the look of the vehicle, and the robot mode has that distinct Bumblebee look we know and love. He also got a toy based on his reformatted look, which looks fine, I guess. As I said, I don't like this version of B. It changed his iconic chest design to something just weird looking, and it's also impossible to replicate at a deluxe scale, meaning he has a fake chest and a lot of his vehicle mode is on his back. Speaking of, Crosshairs has a ton of vehicle mode on his back, but to be honest, he gets a pass, as his character kind of has a trench coat, so there's really no other way to do it. They could have at least painted his goggles though. The lack of paint is a huge issue for this line, and really makes a lot of the toys look cheap. I like the look of Drift's toy, though his colors are completely wrong. The blue they chose should be way darker, almost black, and his face sculpt is just bizarre. Drift already has a weird face, but this sculpt looks like he's trying not to laugh or something. He also had another toy, which transformed into a helicopter, because Drift is actually a triple changer in the movie. But I guess they didn't really want to tackle that with a movie figure, which is lame, but the Drift helicopter figure is pretty cool. Mostly because it's a repaint of an older toy called Skyhammer from the Dark of the Moon toy line. The robot mode doesn't look anything like Drift, and the vehicle mode doesn't look anything like the movie. But there you go, close enough I guess. I really like Hound's toy, though I will say he looks way more buff than fat. This is how I imagine he looked in his younger years. As you would imagine, Hound is armed to the teeth with blasters, and he has so many different places to hide them all. I think his ammo arms are cool, but they're curved a bit and just look awkward looking. His alt mode is pretty cool too. It's a big old bruiser of a military vehicle. Again, he could really use more paint. I did also want to talk about Evasion Mode Optimus Prime, who for years I've heard is the one good toy of this line, and I can see why. I was unimpressed at first. He kind of looks like a flat version of the original Optimus design, but he has a lot more posability than you'd expect. And his transformation is really interesting, basically flipping his torso inside out to become the truck cab. I can definitely see why people like this guy, especially because he turns into a G1 inspired alt mode, and at that time we hadn't been flooded with G1 Optimus Prime yet, so it was still kind of new and a novelty. The colors are completely off though, he's not red and blue in the movie. Let's get into our villains of the movie, of which we have a whopping 2. Lockdown is a pitiful toy. He can do the gun face, which is a huge W, but besides that, he just looks bad. The color is this weird brownish green, I can't even describe it, and his proportions are just so off. Lockdown is the most man-looking Transformer, and this toy doesn't reflect that. The chest design also looks like a mess, and he has a ton of kibble with the no effort to hide it. Galvatron is a complete shell former, with his whole upper body hiding in the cab of the truck mode. But I gotta say that I don't completely hate the guy. His colors make him look really cheap, but at least he has some well-distributed paint, and the vehicle mode does look really good to me. Not the best toy ever, but way better than Lockdown. Finally, we have the Dinobots, which, as you might have noticed, have been given some very bright color schemes. When these were coming out, these bizarre and bright color schemes were the #1 reason I was uninterested in this line. In my mind, if you were going to make movie toys, you should try to at least make them accurate. And I still kind of believe that, but now I'm way more in the camp that this is what the Dinobots Dinobots should have looked like. Hasbro obviously gave them color schemes because they were gray and would just be boring on the shelves. And I agree, gray is boring. I like that Scorn the Spinosaurus is bright red. I think that looks cool. Slug the purple Triceratops and Strafe the blue whatever also look really cool to me. For Grimlock, they chose this bronze color, which is fine, I guess. Grimlock had 2 figures in this line. A Voyager class, which looks really good in my opinion. He's way too small, but his robot mode and especially dinosaur mode look really good. His leader class toy is another story. The robot mode looks okay-ish, though his proportions are off, with a really broad chest and skinny little legs. He also has a ton of chrome, which I guess looks closer to the movie, but again, to me it looks gaudy and overused here. The T-Rex mode is hilariously ugly, the body is way too long, and the chrome distribution is terrible. It looks like he's wearing brown pants. So I think overall the Voyager is much better. There were some non-movie Dinobots also included in the line. We have Slash the Velociraptor, Slog the Brachiosaurus, and Snarl the Stegosaurus, all of which have silly color schemes, except for Slog. If you ask me, Slog would have been the best way to do this line, primarily gray with different color highlights. Now, that was the main American line, but we also have the Platinum Edition, which featured high quality repaints of these toys. For example, Hound has extra paint, and Drift looks closer to the movie with more black included in his color scheme. We got a movie accurate version of Evasion Mode Optimus, which looks really cool to me. I didn't realize the beat up truck in the movie also had hot rod flames. The color separation is a bit jarring though. There was also a set called Dinobots Unleashed, which featured all of the Dinobots minus Snarl in this transparent and gray color scheme, which looks kind of cool, I guess. It also looks really scary because of the breakage potential, but this is as close to the movie as we get in terms of paint schemes for these guys. There was also a repaint of Generation Skids as a character named Rollbar, who transforms into the car used by the Romeo and Juliet law boyfriend. Takara sold these under the movie Advanced line, and featured quite a few unique repaints. For example, this line put out the first proper Dino figure, Dino being the red car from Dark of the Moon, which was a repaint of Revenge of the Fallen Dead End. And they also did a G1 version of the Dark of the Moon Wheeljack. I love the 2007 Protoform Prime that was repainted in G1 colors. So random, but just so cool to me. Stinger actually got a toy in this line, which is of course a repaint of Bumblebee, but did you even notice that Stinger didn't get a toy in the American line? I didn't. The coolest repaint to me is Dispensor, a repaint of 2007 Payload. It's designed to look like an off-brand Mountain Dew vending machine when you stand the truck up, which is really clever, and this is an awesome reference to the first movie. Takara had an even better Evasion Mode Optimus. This repaint is just perfection. It looks good in both modes, and that rust detailing just looks so realistic and cool. I also really like this G1 repaint of Voyager Grimlock. I'm a sucker for movie guys and G1 colors for some reason, and this one works really well. Slug also got the G1 repaint, and we also got several black repaints of the Dinobots, probably because they just thought it looked cool. And to Takara's credit, Nemesis Grimlock is utterly badass. To top this line off, we had a black repaint of the Armor Knight Optimus, and a Nemesis Prime based on the Evasion Mode mold. You can never go wrong with black, red, and teal. So, is this actually the worst movie toy line? It's hard to say. I think the main thing that makes this toy line terrible to people is comparison. If you look at the leader class Optimus Prime from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, a movie that came out just 5 years earlier, you'll see how incredible the engineering, painting, and sculpting is. And leader class Optimus from Age of Extinction pales in comparison. One would expect 5 years down the line that toys would be even better and even more accurate. But that wasn't the case, because at some point, budgets got tighter. Hasbro might have realized that they could sell a lesser product and still make the same profit. If we ignore the past toys though, I don't think these are the worst toys ever. There's a few cool ideas going on, and while a grand majority of the line is simple or samey, that doesn't mean they're bad toys. And I think this being the worst Transformers movie toy line is kind of an outdated thought. That's just me though. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Thanks to Toy Hacks for sponsoring this video, link in the description. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you'd like to support me further, I have a YouTube membership and Patreon. For $1 a month, both give you the same thing. Access to my members exclusive podcast, where I interview other content creators about toys and YouTube. My most recent video featured Stephen Asarch, a journalist that has written for Rolling Stones, Newsweek, and other big publications you've probably heard of. He has really great insight into the toy industry and how YouTubers are changing it. And you also get an invite to my super chill Discord server. Alright y'all, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.